Hey everyone, Chris here, and welcome to The Deep Dive.
And I'm Cassie. We are doing something a little different today.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead of digging through a bunch of articles like usual, we're focusing on just one book. It's called How Heaven Invades Your Finances. Been getting some buzz.
Right, and it was the subtitle that really, caught my eye. Why most Christians stay stuck financially even when they're doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably resonates, I think, with quite a few listeners. You're tithing, you're praying about money, maybe you've got a budget all mapped out.
Yeah, down to the last cent.
Exactly. And you still feel like you're just, surviving, just getting by.
Totally. So our mission, I guess, for this deep dive isn't just to give a book report, but to really explore the main idea. It revolves around something called the seed flow principle.
Okay.
And the book basically argues this principle is like the key to aligning your financial life with what it calls heaven's economy.
Heaven's economy. Okay. What's interesting right away is that idea, if you're feeling stuck, even though you're doing all the things you think you should.
Right.
The book's saying, well, maybe you're actually aligned with the wrong system entirely.
Yeah, like operating under a different set of rules without even realizing it. And it's not really presented as some magic trick to get wealthy overnight.
Right. Not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, more like a path to lining yourself up with how God actually provides. The goal seems to be more about finding clarity, finding peace, and just a more natural, steady flow of resources.
Okay, so the promise then, as the book lays it out, is this potential shift, moving away from that constant fight, keeping your head above water,
The stress.
towards living like fully resourced, being able to focus on what matters, and finding, real financial freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And a really central idea in How Heaven Invades Your Finances is this contrast it draws. It talks about heaven's economy versus the world system. And the author, Pastor Jim Bakker, he suggests that a lot of Christians are sort of, maybe inadvertently, using the world system principles, but hoping for the results you'd expect from heaven's economy.
Think about it, though. So much financial advice we get is rooted in, scarcity, right? Competition, always striving for more.
Yeah, fear of lack.
This book is asking, what if there's just a completely different operating system available, this heavenly economy based on totally different ideas?
And that's exactly where the seed flow principle fits in. It's presented as the biblical framework for how this heavenly economy actually works in our daily lives.
So it's not just about giving money away.
No, it seems more holistic than just tithing. It's about how we receive, how we manage, and how we release resources, but all as part of a cycle, a flow.
Okay, so the goal is to shift away from that constant financial stress, worrying about every single bill.
Right.
Towards a place where trusting God's provision is primary. And giving isn't this heavy obligation, but actually part of the process that leads to increase, not, running out of resources.
Yeah, that seems to be the core idea. And the book dives into quite a few different aspects of this. It starts off looking at the prosperity mandate.
Prosperity mandate.
Yeah, the idea that maybe abundance, not just getting by, is actually part of God's intention. It also tackles what it labels the faith-finance divide.
Okay. What's that?
You know how we sometimes separate our spiritual life, our beliefs, from how we actually handle our money day to day. Like they're two different worlds.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it gets into supernatural stewardship.
Which sounds intriguing. Not just regular stewardship.
Apparently not just careful budgeting, though that's probably part of it. It suggests it also involves being open to God's specific guidance on managing money and maybe seeing provision show up in unexpected ways.
Okay.
And then there's heaven's blueprint. The book contrasts this with relying heavily on credit. It frames God's way more as a covenant-based approach.
Covenant versus credit. Interesting framing.
It also talks about divine transfer, like how to position yourself to receive God's provision, and even give some guidance for when the well runs dry.
So practical advice for hard times too.
Seems like it. Principles for when things are tight. It also challenges what it calls the enough deception.
The enough deception.
Yeah, this idea that, just barely having enough is somehow more spiritual or humble. The book pushes back on that, and it stresses source revelation.
Source revelation, meaning?
Really understanding, deep down, where your provision actually comes from. Hint, not just your job.
Right, okay. Moving beyond just the paycheck.
Exactly. And then there's the abundance shift, which is about moving your mindset from scarcity to expecting surplus. It even touches on some potentially touchy subjects.
Oh, like what?
Well, it looks at what it calls sacred cows. Specifically, it examines the common idea that Jesus chose to live in poverty.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's a common discussion.
And it addresses a specific money lie, that feeling some people have, like, maybe it's just not God's will for me to prosper financially.
Right, challenging that assumption.
Definitely. And for people looking for the what do I do now kind of stuff, it talks about the supernatural paycheck.
Supernatural paycheck.
Right.
So provision beyond your salary.
Yeah, recognizing income or resources that don't come directly from your own efforts, and the concept of money as a servant.
Instead of being a slave to it.
Precisely. Shifting from working for money to having money work for your purpose. It also points to what it thinks is a missing piece in how we usually approach spiritual finance.
A missing piece.
Yeah, like a gap in our understanding. And it offers a freedom code to break free from financial stress and talks about how to experience multiplying miracles.
Wow, okay. It sounds pretty comprehensive. It covers a lot of ground.
It seems to. It looks at foundational stuff like first things first and the order of alignment, but also practical tools like the alignment questions.
Questions to ask yourself.
Yeah, designed to help you figure out where you currently stand financially in relation to these principles. It talks about developing the kingdom mindset.
How does it define that?
It frames wealth less about how much you have and more about how you use it and the impact it creates. It even gets into things like scaling with grace and this idea of an unclaimed inheritance.
Unclaimed inheritance, like untapped potential.
Sort of, yeah. Untapped spiritual and financial resources that might be available.
Interesting. Okay.
And the material we saw also mentioned a bonus training, something called the Homeowner's Hidden Vault.
Oh, yeah. What's that about?
It supposedly offers a strategy for U.S. homeowners. Something about generating tax-free income, and they claim it lines up with IRS rules and these kingdom principles.
Okay. A specific strategy then.
Seems like it. And, to really back up their claims about the book's impact, they offer a triple money-back guarantee.
Triple. Wow, that's confident.
It really is. It suggests they strongly believe this stuff works if you apply it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you see any feedback from readers?
We did see some testimonials quoted, people calling it life-changing, a paradigm shift, saying it helped them really grasp how much God wants to provide for them.
Paradigm shift is a strong term.
Yeah, one person even mentioned feeling like a tangible sense of God's presence while reading it, so pretty impactful for some folks, it seems.
Okay, so wrapping it up a bit. How Heaven Invades Your Finances basically introduces this seed flow principle.
Right.
As a way to rethink your finances through a biblical lens, suggesting aligning with this heavenly economy is the path to more financial peace and actual provision.
Yeah, and it suggests that even if you're doing all the standard Christian financial advice, the tithing, the budgeting, you might still be missing a really key part of the picture. It's offering a potential shift away from that scarcity struggle mindset.
Towards one based more on trust and abundance.
Exactly. And the author, Pastor Jim Baker, he shares his own story too, about how he struggled financially even while in ministry before figuring this stuff out.
So he presents a book as kind of a shortcut.
Yeah, potentially saving readers years of struggling and trying to discover these principles on their own.
And it covers, as we discussed, a really wide range from the theology of prosperity and stewardship all the way to practical steps for alignment and cultivating that kingdom mindset about wealth and giving.
Covers a lot of bases.
Okay, great overview. If you want to get this book, the link will be in the comment section. Thanks for diving deep with us. Please like, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell for more real talk on hot, viral topics.
Bye, everyone, and see you again in our next podcast.